I think we're live. Hi guys, happy Friday.
Hi everyone, happy Friday. Igor Nanu here. Got two special wines today. We have our 90.6 pack, also known as Father's Day special. I picked six wines from all over the world. They were highly reviewed, and we kind of combined them. So it's for anybody who's interested in kind of sampling what are some indigenous grapes or wines from different parts of the world. Just kind of I think it's a good maybe educational tool if you typically drink wines that are domestic. So this is something different, something unique, something fun. So,
I think you said these are called like wines, red wines with tension. Was kind of like a good theme
yeah,
phrase
yeah,
for this.
yeah. So
Okay.
we're gonna taste two of these wines. So the wines in the six packs, obviously they're six, but we're gonna taste two of these. So cool. So yeah, we're gonna start out with
What's the first one?
yes, Blanc Frankish is the grape.
All right. So I think I was pronouncing it Blanc Frankish, but apparently that's not correct. It's
Yeah,
Blanc Frankish.
Frankish. Yeah,
Okay.
it's so it's a grape from Austria,
Okay.
and specifically from Sud Burgenland, which is in southeast Austria. So Burgenland is like a big region, and Sud Burgenland is south of it, and it's right on the border with Hungary. It's actually the tiniest wine producing region in Austria. They only have 1% of vines grow in that region, so it's a tiny, tiny region.
Okay.
And this is from the producer Uwe Schiefer, and he's kind of known as the pioneer of that region. He is restaurateurs, sommeliers turned to winemaker. He started this winery in 1990, so 30 years ago, relatively new. He kind of got the wine bug, and he saw this area could produce some interesting wines. And kind of before him, this area was not really known for wine production. I think partly one of the reasons I was reading is that there's a lot of hail that destroys the vines. So producers didn't even think to use this region for wine growing. So he's like a pioneer in the sense that he's one of the first winemakers to start in this region. And I think he's pioneer in the way he composes his wines. A lot of them are terroir-driven wines, and
He's a naturalist as
yeah,
well, so he kind of believes in
yeah,
like minimal approach. The vineyards are kind of he doesn't intervene chemically or anything. And I heard that he's kind of a farmer. He's a gardener
yeah.
because he has herbs and plants all around because he believes that's kind of healthy.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of part of his philosophy. As we were mentioning, he quote, "Break on through to the other side by the doors," and I think that's if I'm interpreting his that quote correctly, it's kind of what you were mentioning is that he wants to have a philosophical way of making wines and kind of rebellious in a sense, in a way that he's not following. He's kind of following his own rules. And yes, he's a natural winemaker. He uses natural yeast. He tries to very little interference,
Mm-hmm.
hands-off approach,
Mm-hmm.
and Blanc Franquette is one of three kind of most grown wines in Austria, along with Saint Laurent,
Mm-hmm.
which is a cousin to Pinot Noir,
Okay.
and then there's Weigelt. And Weigelt is actually a cross between Blanc Frankish and Saint Laurent. Blanc Frankish is the second most planted red grape in Austria. And in Austria, let me kind of go back to a little bit. It's actually known mostly for their white wines.
Yes, I think most people are like Austria white wine, but
Yeah,
there's quite a good selection of unique and
yeah.
different red wines. So
Yeah, Austria is kind of known Gruner Veltliner. And we did that a couple of weeks ago. That's kind of their claim to fame. It's a medium-bodied wine, kind of a little pepper notes. They make some dry Riesling too, among other white wines. But they also make nice red wines, and a lot of these are in that Burgenland region. He's specifically in that Sud Burgenland, the south part of it. And one of the reasons because even though a lot of these are light-bodied, cold weather wines, it does need a little warmth, and that's the warmest area of Austria. So that's why he's able to make this wine there. So we've had it before. I love this wine, but it's definitely a wine that has a very particular profile. So I don't know if you want to.
I mean, I love it. It's different. If you're looking for the typical California super high fruit, this is different. I think I would say like the tasting notes I wrote down were like a smoked tobacco blueberry, white pepper. It's not got too much strong pepper notes in it. And then I wrote down tart, cool fruit, very long finish, which is important. I guess you always hear that about good wines. And that's the mark of a good wine. It shouldn't have a short finish. It should have a long finish. It should be on your palate for a long time. So long, kind of salty, very mineral finish. It's really different. I like it. I want to eat sausage with it, I think. Yeah. Sorry, I'm always talking about food, but like lighter meats, tomato, pasta, kind of vinegar marinated stuff, I think would go well for it. But yeah, it's very different. I love that smoky blueberry feel that it starts with. It's very different. It's not like a cherry or heavy. It's very light. But
it is acidic. It's definitely an acidic grape. And I think that's some of the things that potentially turns people off. We had this grape in our wine club, and I definitely think of all the wines I had in the club, this is the one that would split people apart. I think there were people like me who love its uniqueness, but others thought it was overwhelming. I'm guessing the acidity.
Acidity, yeah. But, I think that well, for me, because I'm more of a foodie and I like to cook, I always think about what I want to pair with it, and that makes such a big impact. If you've ever had like wine with the wrong pairing food, it totally changes the flavor profile of the wine itself. You can't really taste the wine. So I always recommend having it, on a clean palate, maybe just a cracker, not like after you brush your teeth. But I think this is really good.
Yeah. So we kind of me tasting it right now. You got a smokiness on the nose. I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
Tart cherry on the palate, and then it goes into these earthy notes and a nice extended finish. I think it's as good as the other two times I tried. And actually, we have there's a little backstory that we missed about this wine that's kind of cool. So the wine, it comes back from the pre-medieval times.
Oh, really?
Yes. Okay. So at that time, I guess grapes were divided into superior grapes, and superior means Frankish.
Okay.
And from the Franks. And
oh, right. Yes. Yeah, I do remember. I have a history tidbit on this.
Yes. So
yeah, get me there.
Right. You would like Frankish and the rest. Okay. So obviously, Blanc Frankish was one of the noble grapes of that time, and it was really, I think, what is the word we were?
Charlemagne.
King Charlemagne. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was the first recognized ruler to rule from Western Europe since the fall of the Western Roman Empire. So yeah, he's first ruler back in the day. So 774. My history teacher would be embarrassed, but yeah, very very big in history, right? So.
No, it's just fun. I think there's a theme in a lot of the grapes we produce. It's great history they have. Right now, Blanc Frankish, I think I would say it's a grape that nobody knows unless you're in Austria or you're a wine geek. But it shows the great history. It comes from, we got the Romans in here. We got, King Charlemagne.
It was good enough for him. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if it's good enough for him, it should be good enough for everyone. It's not a Cabernet world that everybody else is kind of drinking it. It's a lot of great grapes around, and Blanc Frankish is one of these. So, and just a little more geek before we move on to the next grape. So I don't know if you guys can see. First of all, it has a beautiful label design, and then you can't see it. So this is the cuvée is called Koningsbeg. The winemaker, he believes that, like I mentioned earlier, it's a terroir-driven wine. So different parts of his land produce different type of wines. So he has different cuvées. So this one, the Koningsbeg, it comes from the Dolomite limestone And so it's I guess the Dolomites in the Italian Alps. They kind of continue, and this is kind of the plain in Austria. So this plot of land, the vineyard, is on the limestone from the Dolomitic limestone, which is similar to the Alta Adige in northeast Italy. So similar soil. So I think he's got a little of that kind of coolness to it. His most famous vineyard is called. I have it here, Eisenberg, and that's it's actually from slate, which is a different type of soil, and it produces different flavor. So he has different cuvées that come from different soils. It's kind of like almost like a not a single vineyard, but a single type of soil cuvées. And he likes to show how this grape shows differently when it grows on different soils within the same small area.
Right.
So it's kind of like Burgundy, where Burgundy has different parcels of land that are, Bourgognes, Premier Crus, Grand Crus. Within a small distance, they produce completely different wines. So I think he's this kind of replication obsession with Burgundy. So,
okay, cool. Yeah, so 92 points in our Father's Day six-pack. Pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Rambling Man, do you want to move to the next wine, or?
Yes. Let's go. Let's go to the next one. All right. Now we're moving to Cahors.
Yeah.
Show that. Yeah.
So, I never know which way to turn it. So here's the next one. And how do you say this?
So the region is called Cahors. It spells Cahors, Cahors, but it's pronounced Cahors.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard it pronounced correctly until now.
Yes, so, yeah. And the grape is Malbec. And Malbec is known to be in Argentina. That's the most famous place for Malbec. And then the other claim to fame for Malbec is that it's one of the 5 Bordeaux grapes, along with Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot, and Malbec, the 5 Bordeaux varieties. And it's typically used in a small percentage in those varieties. But Cahors is the birthplace of this grape. And once again, this grape has a long history. Cot, they call it locally. It's called Cot, C-O-T. But it's the same grape. It's Malbec. Okay. And they also call it. Let's pour this in the glass and test it out. They call it the black grape of Cahors.
Oh, because it's super dark.
Because it's super dark, super inky, very concentrated, more. Yeah. And they're saying with some cuvées, if you put your fingers underneath the glass, you shouldn't be able to see your fingers because it's so inky.
I know our lighting isn't very good, but this is so dark. Yeah, we can't see anything. This is like squid ink, so.
Yeah, can't see anything.
No.
So
it's very dark.
Yeah. Right. So once again, it has a long history. Early Middle Ages comes in again. During the Middle Ages, the wines from Cahors used to travel to Northern Europe through Garonne River. So it's in southwest France. I think it's just south of Bordeaux. So it's right next to Bordeaux, but now obviously it's not as famous. Bordeaux is probably the most famous wine region in the whole world. And the southwest France, where Cahors is not as famous, but it's producing these Malbec-based wines. So Malbec is mostly grown there. A little bit of Tannat, another super tannic grape, and a little bit of Merlot. So those are the 3 grapes, but most of the cuvées have to have at least 70% Malbec in them. Okay. So other 2 grapes are used in small percentages, just like a blending grape. So that's kind of a little backstory to that. It's got a little bit of both Mediterranean influence and a little bit of the Atlantic influence. And it's a grape that ages for a very long time. So it's very concentrated. Obviously, it's very dark. It's
highly rated too, right? 93 points, Wine Enthusiast. So it's
Yes.
critically reviewed.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of backstory. Are you done with your notes?
Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. Well, so it's owned by Alain Dominique Perrin. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but if that name sounds familiar to any of the ladies, it's because he is on the board of the company that owns several major names: Cartier, Van Cleef Arpels, so big designer house of jewelry there. So he's the owner of this winery. He apparently bought it. I forget what year he bought it. I want to say like late 1970s or something around then. But
Yes.
it's the property is a 15th century castle, medieval Renaissance style. So a little bit of history context for those of us who are rusty, which was me earlier. So Renaissance, Crusades, that's how old the castle is. And when he bought it, it was basically in shambles, and he had like a whole restoration project that was supposed to take 12 years. But it took 25 years to restore the castle property, 3 teams of architects, and he brought in several specialists. You should Google the property. It's very beautiful. So yeah, it's just, it's an iconic castle, and it's a historical monument classified officially. So it's a very nice property. And you can tell, I guess, that he, is on the board of Cartier and Van Cleef's because the property itself has such phenomenal aesthetics to it. So you can tell. He called himself aesthete or something. Yeah. So I said that when I was perusing through. I was like, wow, this is fantastic aesthetics in the property. And then he called himself like an aesthete himself. So yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. No, it's very cool. No, I want to geek out maybe a little bit more on these these wines. Well, especially we're talking about the Malbec right now. At one time there were like a lot of the vines in Cahors, but was it late 19th century? No, late 18th century, early 19th century. Phylloxera, the disease that destroyed a lot of the vineyards in Europe. It actually came from Americas. 90% of the vineyards in the Cahors was destroyed.
Yeah, if you're in the wine world, you know all about how this plague destroyed all the vineyards.
So that obviously, a lot of vineyards, not only in Cahors, but they suffered a lot. And actually, historically, they've suffered in the past too. So just doing a little background on them, what was interesting is that at one point, I guess they had like, this was around Middle Ages, late Middle Ages maybe, where they had like big frost that went through the vineyards and destroyed every single vine.
Like a severe frost?
Yeah, and I think for decades upon decades, nothing was grown there. So they had to kind of recultivate their like land maybe over a century after that happened. I think that's one of the reasons how they used to be a major wine producing part of the Middle Ages, and then because of these circumstances, they're basically unknown. Even though Malbec, is famous. It's a famous grape, probably one of the 10 most famous grapes, but it's famous because of Argentina, not because of a Cahors.
Okay.
And in Argentina, it makes fruity, early drinking wines, whereas Cahors, it's very tannic grape, and it ages for a really long time. And just like another kind of geek note on this, it's a debate. It's not like a fact. But there's 2 type of soils in the area. So there's limestone, they call it caucasus, and typically Malbec that grows on those vines, on those soils, it's a long aging Malbec. You could age it 10 plus years easily. The other part is sand and gravel, and they call it Chateau, and it's usually for the younger drinking wines. So the wine we're drinking today, that's from that second. The younger drinking wines, the Chateau.
Okay.
So, but to me, it has plenty of tannins. This is 2015. This could easily sit, another 5 years, I think.
Okay, taste it and then tell me the tasting notes. And while you do that, I did look up what kind of foods these wines are supposed to go with, which I was really excited because I like lamb and steak. So lamb, steak, it's so inky and dark. It can handle those very strong mushroom, rosemary flavors. Yeah. So, this is definitely my kind of wine.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the region is known for truffles, foie gras, and duck. So, it's a richness.
Yeah, I have that in my pantry. Easily available, sure. Okay.
Yeah, no, but it's nice one. It's definitely deeper than the La Franquiche, more full-bodied.
Yeah.
It has a great tannic structure, but not that like nice I don't know. I wouldn't say it's sweet tannins, but it's not dryish tannish either. It doesn't like cover your mouth. It's like a nice mouth feel.
Yeah, it's like a nice cherry tannin, but not too strong.
Yeah.
It has a bit of alkaline end notes there that kind of keep going.
Yes. And did you want to, I guess, on the off note, did you want to make a mention about your necklace?
Oh yeah. So my necklace was made today by my friend and neighbor, Katya. So it's very lovely. I just wanted to give her a shout out because she asked me to wear it during the tasting. Thanks.
Yeah, and and our rates are pretty sensible right now. We don't charge more. So I see that we have Catherine, the realtor. We can promote you on the next tasting. So
yeah,
anybody,
yeah.
call us.
Thanks, Catherine, for joining us. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. So I mean, I have nothing more in the wine. Two great wines, I think. Very interesting, cool backstories. One wine that the grape is known, but the region I think is not known. I think the other wine is completely unknown to typical. If you're just like a casual wine drinker, not typical, but casual. But I think it's great wines to explore.
Yeah. So all part of our Father's Day FAQ, Father's Day 6-pack.
Yeah.
So kind of red wines with tension. Really interesting.
Yes.
All right. Cool.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys. Good night.